Hey guys, check it out. I'm parked for a 10-hour break, and right next to this absolutely gorgeous valley with some mountains in the backdrop. A little bit dreary. I wish there was some more sun, but 62 degrees. And the cool thing is, I'm in an area with a battlefield, historic battlefield, and I'm actually listening to an audiobook about the history of the Civil War. So pretty dang cool to be parked here with a battlefield while listening to that kind of history. But in this video, we're going to talk about sleep or a lack thereof. Alright guys, Eric here, Driveline, world's okayest steering wheel holder, and yeah, I'm pretty pleased with my parking spot. And I'm on a dry load, so I don't have any reefer noise. So life is good. It's not hot. I'm not gonna have to, it's not hot, it's not cold. So I'll probably be able to crack the windows. There's no flies. Crack the windows and get some good sleep today, which is needed. So last night was kind of rough because it's not like a dangerous drive where I'm falling asleep, but it's just one of those nights where I just felt beat all night, like not well rested. You know what I mean? Part of it, I think, is because yesterday morning there was no parking, so I ended up just finding a place, you know, if it fits, that's where it sits, that was not a parking spot for 2 hours, and I took a nap. So and that was a good solid 2-hour nap. And then it was late enough to where all the, you know, the solar power drivers flushed out and the spots were nice and wide open, so I was able to go park. But the problem is, because I got that 2 hours of really good sleep on that nap, then I had a hard time sleeping solid for my actual 10-hour break. So it's just kind of weird, you know, how it all works out. But if you're thinking about coming into trucking, there's something pretty important you need to really be aware of before you take the time to go through the process and go through school and all that for your CDL. I was actually I watched a video, I don't know, a week or two ago, that was put up by a driver a different company, so much shorter training period, but he got about 5 weeks in, so he finished a pretty short training period and then went out on his own truck. I think he did like 3 weeks training or something like that. Went out on his own truck, and at the 5-week point from the time that he got his permit to being 5 weeks into OTR, he just couldn't do it. Just called it quits after 5 weeks. And in this video, he was talking about how he just, it wasn't what he expected in terms of his schedule. This is a guy who went his entire life working an 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, and so you go do your 8-hour shift, come home, hang out with the family, take a shower, have dinner, take care of some tasks around the house, and you're in bed by 9 or 10 or whatever his schedule is. And his whole life was that, you know. And you come into trucking, and that gets completely destroyed. Just, that is not going to happen. Not anywhere remotely close. And this is actually, I think, one of the problems with training that are so short. I mean, there's a lot of problems with it. Now, some of you who don't go through a training program as long as Primes, you'll be like, oh, Primes is too long, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it all before. You don't need to waste your time commenting. Like, I've heard it all. Heard all 10, 15, 100 times. Can if you want, but you're not going to teach me anything. is that, so I'll give you an example. I remember back when I was in training, at the very beginning of training. In fact, I think I only had a permit. Yeah, I was in PSD because I did my PSD on the road, which is your permit phase with Prime. And I remember the first time, I remember it in great detail, the first time that I drove 300 miles. And I thought it was such an accomplishment. And it is too. If you're out there and you're working on your, if you're just getting started and you're like, I haven't done a 300 mile, it is a great accomplishment. 300 miles when you're brand new is no joke, because like right now, 5 years into this, like I don't even think about reading. I read signs just automatically. If you're not in trucking yet and you drive a four-wheeler, you miss most of the signs on the road because you just don't need to pay attention to that many of them. I'm not saying that to call you stupid or anything. I'm just saying, like, most signs are not relevant to you. But for us, they're very relevant. It could be a low bridge, it could be an exit that is no trucks, way stations coming up, construction zones merging into a lane, traffic crossing, you name it, deer, all of it's very, very relevant to us. Bridge weight, things like that. So I've gotten to the point now where I see every sign and I'm not even looking for them. Like, I just don't even think about it. And this windshield and the two windows are like a big 4K 8K television that my eyes are automatically trained to see the whole thing. So I'm seeing everything. I'm seeing way up ahead. Are there flashing lights? Someone pulled over? I can always kind of just know where my trailer's at. I even kind of glance throughout the night to make sure the trailer lights are on. All of it. Make sure cars behind me, it's very natural, and you don't even think about it. You don't think about signs. You don't think about, I know my truck. I know when my truck's doing 65 or 55 without even looking at the speedometer. I know when I need to engage the engine brake, at what point going over the crest of a hill I need to engage the engine brake. It happens very automatic, But at the very beginning, you're not trained on any of that. So you're forcing your brain to think about all of it, to overthink about all of it. And because it's a little overwhelming, driving a 75-foot truck, that could weigh 40 tons. It's a little overwhelming. And so that first 300-mile drive, I was spent. I was done. I was super proud of it. It felt accomplished. But when we parked in that truck stop, I went up into the top bunk and passed out, man. I was finished. So, if you go through a really short training period and you're throwing the keys to a truck, and all of a sudden you got to be doing 5, 6, if you're not in a governed truck, maybe 700-mile drives at different times of the day on different days, I can see how that's a steep curve, right? At least the long training at Prime, it's very gradual. You kind of take it step by step, unless you're on a training pad the whole time, and then you get thrown into TNT. It's probably a little bit steeper, but if you're doing PSD out on the road, your permit out on the road, and then you do your licensed part of the training out on the road, the 30,000 miles or whatever it is. Maybe it's more than that, 50,000 or whatever it is now. It's very gradual, and you work your way into it. Now it speeds up once you get into the TNT, the license. It definitely speeds up pretty quick. But I felt at the end of my TNT, I was prepared. And of course, now the years and years after that, I'm definitely prepared. But on the sleep thing, it's weird because you not only are you have really very little control of your sleep schedule. You have to, like, you just sleep when you can. Sometimes those are going to be broken up into segments, or sometimes they'll be back to back. Like, you have a 10-hour break and then you only need to go do 3 or 4 hours of work. So you've just slept 8 hours. And then because of the way the load is, you got to stop for another 10-hour break after that 3 or 4 hours of work. Maybe you went and got loaded or something like that. Well, somehow you have to make sure that you're rested enough for the maybe 500 or 600 miles of work that you're going to have to do after that break. But you've just slept 8 hours. And you've only been up for 4, 5, 6 hours. But you got to go back to sleep to make sure that you're well rested and slept for the big shift that you got to do after that break. You see what I mean? So, like, you're not going to be able to sleep 16 hours over the course of 40 hours. So it can be, it's a challenge, because you got to be rested for that big shift. So you just got to figure it out, man. Because if you just stay up that whole 10-hour break, well, now you've been up for 15, 16 hours and you got to go work 12, 13 hours. You know, you see what I'm saying? So things like that. And then one day you got to sleep in the middle of the day, and the next day you're sleeping at 4 a.m. and then again at 6 p.m. And it's just there is no consistency to it whatsoever. Now, I dictate mine quite a bit. So I would say probably 4 or 5 days out of 7, I'm off the road by 8 a.m. and back on the road by 8 p.m. So that's kind of what I try to, that's my ideal schedule, depending on the amount of miles I got to work that night. But that's really what I like to run. And I'm able to do that most of the week. But there's a couple days of the week where it's just like, okay, I'm going to be working in a day and I got to try to, I just slept all night, and so I got to figure this out because my load might deliver at 2 in the afternoon, or I got to pick up at 2 in the afternoon. So it's just, if you can't function that way, if you can't function without a very consistent schedule where you're sleeping every day at the same time or every night at the same time, it's going to be a challenge for you. It's going to be very, very difficult. You may want to start tweaking up your schedule ahead of time, to be honest with you. You may want to start screwing yourself up a week or two before. Just to get a taste of it, and just to see how it's going to work for you, because sometimes you're going to have to work when you feel beat. I'm not saying that you're driving dangerously tired. I'm not talking about, like last night, it's not a matter of like falling asleep at the wheel or getting sleepy. If I've ever come remotely close to that, and there's been a couple times where it's like, oh, this is getting bad, because again, I drive mostly nights. I will find a place to park immediately and take a little bit of a nap. But that doesn't happen very often. Like last night was not the kind of night where that was the case. Last night was just a night where I just like physically just felt beat most of the night. So, but you got to work through it, You either got to work through it, or if you get sleepy, you got to pull over and take a nap. But then after an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, if you're doing a split, you got to get up and go right again. So you're just not going to get you're not going to be sleeping 10 to 6 every single night. And you got to be okay with that. And not only do you have to be okay with it mentally, you have to be able to function like that. And function at a professional, safe, high performance level. It's not for everybody, man. It is definitely not for everybody. Definitely wasn't for that dude. he was like, I'm out. He's like, no. I think he said that he worked the last 7 days that he worked, he never felt rested or awake. Just always felt sleepy and tired. And didn't see any room for improvement. So, it's just not for everybody. And another thing is, you're going to be sleeping with all kinds of noises and leaky air lines in a truck next to you where it's just all night, psh, psh, all night long. Reefer's going to be going behind you. Sometimes you sleep in like an alley, It is not a luxurious lifestyle. So the conditions and the environment that you're parking in, like right now, it's a great, like right now is the most ideal parking for a 10-hour break situation for me. This is, if I could have this every day, I'd be golden. But it's not like this every day. It's now if you work at nights, your parking options are going to be a lot better. Almost every day I'm able to park on the end at a truck stop, the end spot, so there's not a truck on both sides of me, and I'm able to park in an unblockable spot, meaning that nobody can bonus park in front of me and block me into my spot. Those are the two types. That's the kind of the two things I look for every single day. How do I get into a spot where the risk of getting hit, being backed into, or having a trailer rip me up trying to pull out is minimal, if not non-existent? And how do I make sure that I can pull out at 10 p.m.? And I generally don't have a problem finding that option every day. If I come off at the road at 8, I can kind of park wherever I want. That's one of the biggest. That and traffic are the two reasons I drive at night. Like tonight, I got to go through Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. So, but I'm going to do it at, midnight, 1 a.m. So traffic will be absolute minimal. And then tomorrow morning, when, I'll be able to go park wherever I want. So, but I still, the next load could have me working days, and right now I'm sleeping during the day, so it's just going to throw that out of whack. It's just, just keep that in mind. Don't let that surprise you. Don't let that be a shock to you. Expect that. Set your expectations for that. And hopefully you'll be okay. And, if it's a little bit shocking to you, know that in time, you just kind of adjust, hopefully. All right, guys, be safe, get good sleep, make good decisions, and as always, drive to thrive. Talk to y'all soon.